Hello, this is Dave, and welcome to Equity Story. I'm with the Wolfie, and as you can see, we've actually got our names right. You can see the Hound
Finally.
here and Wolfie. So, Wolfie, just before I start, this is obviously just general share advice and not personal advice. Wolfie, thank you so much for last week holding the fort and doing absolutely brilliantly. And what a chartist! All I've got is emails from members going, Dave, the boy can chart. The boy can chart. He can fundamentally chart, but he's seriously a part of the dark arts now. Part of the yeah. And just listening to you.
You can go on your trips, Dave, and good old Wolfie can step in and do the charting.
Well, you know what? All I heard from you when I spoke to you last week a few times was, Dave, you gotta see this chart. This chart. This chart's fantastic. So now we had a look at the announcements today,
Mhm.
and
How
things
was it?
are yeah. Well, things are a little bit quiet. Things in I think I was a bit of a downer really on Einstein's Wolf. So because I showed the chart back in 2015, I said, listen, it's good, it's okay, but let's not get too excited just yet. There's still inflation issues. There's still a war that needs to be solved, right? So there's still, I think, potentially volatility out there, Wolf.
Mhm.
But the markets are certainly looking better. At least we're back above trend
Mhm.
and stocks are starting to come back a little bit. So, what I thought we'd do is have a look last week at Einstein's, how some of the ideas, yeah,
Mhm.
see how they did, and then we can have a look at this week, and maybe we could come up with some ideas that people could be interested in to make, hopefully, have a trade and see if they can make some money on it.
Yep. Agree.
I was firstly, Wolf. I was a little bit surprised. I'll start with the real estate stocks. CIP had a nice move up last week, right? And as you can see, so did NSR and so could CQR. So I was a little bit surprised the real estate. I suppose, listen, the charts look good, but I'd have thought, with the inflation talk, they'd have been struggling a little bit, to be honest, Wolf. But they didn't do too badly.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting dilemma, isn't it? You've got stocks that are really more dividend stocks, right? Like your CQRs of the world. So maybe that's what's holding these things up. It's the fact that they are delivering that really still nice dividends in a inflationary world. But you're right. On the other flip side, you think to yourself, when you see some of these tech stocks going up, and maybe would be now looking and so maybe some of these tech stocks that starting to look good on the charts again. So I look, it is that it's a dilemma, but if they're trending still, you still hold them.
Well, I'm going to use the word we, Wolf, because I know you're a chartist now, but we certainly liked the price action on NAB, and it's moving up, and possibly could test that $32. So I think if anyone's in that trade, I would hold in. Monash actually, had that little breakout 2 weeks ago and moved up beautifully last week.
Mhm.
And an interesting story. Now, if I was in that, I'd be taking a profit just the way, it's stretched a little bit for me, Wolf. But I know, sorry, there are talk of some takeover happening here or takeover
Well,
talk.
it's actually its rivals being taken over. So there's a lot of bit of probably FOMO in this as well because
Yeah,
of it. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. I think too far from the trend, and you've seen it what happened previously to it. It comes
yeah.
back. So profit taking would
Profit
be, yeah,
definitely.
technically probably be the right thing to do.
AGI was disappointed, Wolf, because now this is a story that we're quite liking. Now, obviously, it's not a sell yet. We're going to see where it is by the end of the week. But I think it should have traded. It should have traded better. So hopefully, by the end of week, this is above trend. But again, if it's below trend, take no prisoners in this market and sell it.
Yep.
Um, I had some interesting ones in the industrials. I thought Oz Growth looked
Mm-hmm.
interesting again. It's moving up again this week. This is an interesting one, Wolf, which we spoke about this one a long, long time ago, and it was sort of pricking your interest as something that's been oversold. And you always said, Dave, we just got to wait till this gets going again. But you know what? Sort of 2 weeks ago, it did get going, and this is the one I did phone you up about. I said, have a look at MRM, and it's starting to go again. And why you've got to quite like it. It's had a massive fall, and potentially there's a little bit of air up here, at least the 70 cents. What do you make of this story, Wolf? Do you still?
It used to be on a life support system, David. This is
Yeah,
a recapitalized business that is very capital intensive. it provides support services to oil rigs, to platforms out there, to drillers out there. So the moment for it to actually do quite well is now, right? Where you've got that strong oil price, gas price, where where there's probably a lot of activity going on, and they should be supporting that activity with the number of boats that they've got and services they actually offer. So from one hand, you like it, but from on the other hand, you know that it's still a high risk and you're just trading this for the time being. So I don't mind trending this because, like I said, this is coming from a real depths, right? From its almost a non-existence. So maybe it's the time to have a look at this as a trade.
Brilliant. Thanks, Wolf. We've got NWH, again, looking pretty good. Now, this is another one I think that looks really interesting on the charts, is Nufarm.
Yep.
I suppose in brackets or war stock with being helped by obviously all the embargoes and all the issues in Ukraine and tariffs that have been put on Russia. But the price action was really good sort of 2 weeks ago, and I quite liked it. Get this chart a little bit bigger. This is what I liked. Then it had a nice move up last week. But you know what? I've got a funny feeling, Wolf, this could keep on going a little bit.
Oh, it possibly can. I mean, this is a great space right now to be in, right? Food security, agriculture is, in times of war, in times of embargoes, it's definitely a place people probably go towards. And at least here in Australia, while we've got some wild weather and floods and stuff, I think agriculturally speaking, it's actually not a bad period of time for some of these farmers out there. We've seen GNC with GrainCorp and its wheat having absolutely fantastic crops. So definitely one to put it on your as a trade, no doubt.
Again, IPL Wolf, which we've had on for a while now, and it's had a beautiful move up last few weeks, and again maybe a bit of resistance at that $4. So if you look at the price action of those charts, I'd still be holding it, but I think if it can edge up to 390, maybe I'd be taking a profit on it. Mm-hmm. One of your stories that you really like is Worley, right? Mm-hmm. And had that nice breakup, Wolf, and it isn't a bad looking chart. Now, it's a sort of story that can edge up, I reckon, and possibly retest that 14 if it's in the right space, isn't it? With oil and gas doing really, really well, and it's a more conservative way to play that space. But again, the chart doesn't look too bad.
Yeah, again, it's energy space is at the forefront of everyone's minds at the moment. This again supporting the energy space. So for me, one to trade right now, and possibly, if you've got the longer term outlook, remember they've announced over the last 12, 24 months, they are changing their business around, looking towards the future, going from the old oil and gas to moving to the renewables, and supporting those industries in the energy space. So potentially this is a long-term play here.
Wolf, when I phoned you middle of the week, obviously I was keeping an eye on the markets, and there was a big sell-off on a lot of the commodity plays. But again, I was really pleased how the Einstein stocks really performed, generally speaking, across the board. The material stocks that we put out, most of them actually did reasonably well or held up exactly where they need to be. And I think some of them, again, of like IKW, have just having superb moves up. So, CXO likewise. So I was really pleased with the performance, like ARL. Look at that move. That's gone from 80 to 114. AGY, had a good move. So I was pleased, generally speaking, how they all performed. I was expecting it could have been a little bit more blood on the streets, Wolf. Mm-hmm. But they've held up really well, which shows there's still a lot of interest in that section, doesn't there?
It is, and maybe the other thing that you can maybe start to pick up from what's happening on the markets, maybe towards the end of the week, was the market, which is really strange and really maybe weird, is getting comfortable with the war, right? They know what's happening there. As long as the status quo is going on, maybe the markets are just going to go, well, unless it gets really, really worse from here, we're happy to start looking at those cheap stocks and keep playing with the strong themes like your energy and your commodities. So I think that's maybe what we saw at the start at the end of the week.
Definitely, and we've seen obviously things like PDN holding up, and the two sort of maybe Coldplay's NHC and WHC holding up again reasonably well. I thank you very much, Wolf. You picked you looked at those buy signals. RIC, a story we like, and it's actually on a trend, this one, and looks like it's on that way to 180, and I think it's a good chance it'll hit it. But again, it's up another 5% today. And Metcash went for that buy signal absolutely beautifully last week. Maybe a bit of resistance at that 450, Wolf. So maybe profit taking time if you got in the Metcash trade. But in my absence, you picked those two stories absolutely beautifully. So hopefully people followed your advice and did get into those. And again, good to see LTR. That we had that buy signal and going through. So good to see some of those buy signals doing reasonably well. I think one of the poorer ones, Wolfie, I thought could have done a bit better was IGO. It hasn't gone through, but possibly an opportunity, right? So, keep it on your radar. Now, let's have a look at some of the ones that we've seen this week, and maybe we could pick a few out. Banks, like I said, still look reasonably good, and maybe they could look like they could trend up a little bit higher. EBO, which I think's an interesting story, has come down to trend, Wolf. Could be a little bit of an opportunity there. Now, this is lightly traded, this stock, so you've got to be a little bit, certainly a little bit careful. Hub. So Hub's price action last week was superb. You know what? I have to be confused. I mean, you look at Hub, you look at PPS, you look at Hub fighting back. Does PPS really deserve to go from 150 down to 70 cents, Wolf, when you look at Hub holding up so well?
No, look, it's not a very appropriate, I suppose, response to PPS. What have they come up with half yearly? I mean, that was just ridiculous. But then again, the market's pretty harsh to anything that's misses its maybe expectations, right? I think at the end of the day, PPS is probably still in the crosshairs of some. Remember, there was talk about takeover at $1.20 or 30. So can you imagine now everyone's probably lining up at the door? So for me, it definitely oversold. But we just got to wait till the market starts waking up to some of these stories again.
Definitely. Wolf, I just want to go for some of the buy signals. And again, brilliantly, you pointed Macquarie on Friday. So hopefully but that does look very, very good, doesn't it? It's got everything. It's come down. It's held trend. It's got a buy signal. Beautiful candle last week. And, you'd think that there's enough momentum in there for this to slingshot back up at least around that 210 level.
Now that the obviously the market's getting more comfortable with this war, which is again, just the wrong thing to say, but this is what's happening. I'd still be buying this. This is technically still a buy, and this is still fundamentally a strong buy because these guys love to trade commodities, especially when they're so wild at the moment, and they do a pretty good job most of the time. So that's the market for these guys, and they've already come up with an upgrade.
Wolf, another stock, EOL. Again, you've got to be careful with this one. It's sort of fairly lightly traded, as you can see. Look, the next seller is 664. But again, I mean, this has been a very solid little price action, hasn't it, for a number of years? And again, I think the price action last week looked good. TUA, I mean, you picked this one out on Friday. What a beautiful looking chart that is. And it's over $2 now. I would say this one's not too late to buy if someone wants to buy the story. It's pretty blue chop. Macquarie Group. Little Gin actually had a nice little buy signal, Wolfie. So maybe that 80 million lottery tickets got a bit of interest going there.
Oh, 100%. There would have been every man and a dog would have been buying. And I know my two dogs have bought a ticket each. So.
CWY, Wolf, is another one, a good price action. And again, you picked this one out beautifully for the members on Friday. Again, looks like you could go on with it.
Technically and fundamentally, you look at it and you think to yourself, yeah, look, it definitely can have a run towards that previous highs. And that's what we look at. And especially, I tend to look at the bigger stories, right? For me, when you're not around, Dave, unfortunately, it's a little bit more skewed towards the bigger stories like your Macquarie's, like your CWY. So that's what I've been sort of focusing on, and that's sort of.
Listen, they're the story in this market. They're the stories you want to focus on, Wolfie.
Oh, good.
You're doing the right thing, champion. Um, Now, but and again, another one I thought this week looked good. This Oz Forex. Now,
Yes.
when I saw that chart, out of all the charts, if there's going to be a hot chart, this is it, right? It's not a hot stock, but if there's going to be a hot chart, this is it. That price action last week was a breakout, big
Hmm.
green candle,
Hmm.
superb buy signal,
Hmm.
and
Everything's going high, isn't it?
and it's everything going for it. And I remember talking to a big a big company interested in buying this a number of years ago, and they were just saying they love the business model, this recurring revenue stream, what it's got.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think we should be putting this as a trend. I think we could buy this wolf at around this, buy under 254. Let's target sort of 298. Nice little stop loss maybe under that 195 or something. Um, and I think we'll give it a go.
Yeah. Look, the other thing that's going for it was the update. That's what triggered its really reversal because it was sort of little bit weak last week, and the middle of the week investor briefing and trading update, and that was a very strong investor update. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Wow, this is a great story." Well, yes, it's been a good story for the last probably 6 to 12 months. They've started to actually turn the business around beautifully and pretty much firing on all cylinders. And this is why the story still probably has got legs to go towards the $3.
Wolf, MNS again had a buy signal. I think this one looks very, very strong, and Ample looked
Mhm.
pretty good. I mean, it's a funny looking chart though, isn't it? It's such a wobbly one, this one, but I still quite like the chart, and although it hasn't gone on with it immediately today. Um, can I just say these energy stocks? If people are in them and you're making profits, don't be too greedy on these or try and lift your stop loss as quickly as you can because they're the most energy stocks are the most horrible stocks in the world to trade. They're so difficult. They're so volatile, Wolf.
Yep.
So just be a little bit careful with these. You can see Ben. Look at these. They can move up and down huge amounts in a day. So just be aggressive as you can with those type of stories. And again, good to see here, Wolf. We got a number of big hits already, ABX and LTR and ARU. So ARL. So it looks like Einstein's is certainly doing its thing on a lot of these materials.
Mhm.
So a few. This one looks even better now. It's got even a buy signal. Obviously a nice little lithium play. I think there's a few lithium plays. You've got rare earth starting to look very good. ARL. What's ARL, Wolf? Do you remember?
Nickel.
Nickel. Look at
Mhm.
that one starting to go. I mean, that was on last week. It looks
Mhm.
fantastic.
I think there's a
And
lot of FOMO in this ARL, to be honest. So just again, be careful, tight stop losses, don't lose your profits if you're in these.
100%. Wolf, industrials. Seek is back.
It was
So
ridiculous. We looked at it on Friday, Dave, and I thought this
yeah.
is a great looking chart. The only thing I'm thinking to myself, bloody hell, it's still expensive. So I thought fundamentally, while I'm loving the chart that is poked its head back up above the trend lines. Fundamentally, I just could not get it. I just could not. I'm thinking, what, it's going to go back to $35, back to that 60 times PE? Doesn't make any
Uh,
sense. So that's the only thing I thought, nah, let's just wait.
Um, it looks good, and at the end of the day, Wolf,
Yes.
this is sort of how you play the CTM. It broke the trend, yeah.
Yep.
Now, you wouldn't normally want to buy things like this, but a company like Seek
Mm.
breaks back over the trend of big green candle.
Yep.
The technicals are good. It's most probably as good chance this is going to go on with it, as long as I think that we don't have more war issues. Like I said, obviously, new farm still back on. It looks good. SDF. Now, there's a story, Wolf. A story, I get excited because I know you liked this story for a while.
Right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
I think look, maybe back then I did. I think there's better stories right these days.
well,
So it's still okay.
maybe you're just looking at the chart, but fundamentally,
Mhm.
you had a little bit of a crush for it on for a week. I don't know what it was, but anyway, the price action was excellent. Again, a strong story similar to Seek. Generally speaking, you get that sort of price action. Similar to here. Look, same candle, bang, it'll go on with it. Okay, look for
Mhm.
your 4 or 5%. I mean, I'm not saying hold it for six
Well,
months,
the
but
good thing is it's industrial, so you're fairly okay with going with something that's the flavor of the month.
Now, Mad, great. You put this on halfway through next week, Wolf. And I mean, look, everyone's trading it. Had a big move. It's back to 291, but this looks like to me it's going higher over the next few weeks as long as the market behaves itself. Fantastic price action, Wolf.
Yeah, the thing is, we've been on this trade already since about 240, I think. So, just putting it on a hot stock, it's just reiterating. Great looking chart, great story, but you got to have a hot stock. You got to have a long-term view. You're not going to make money overnight with hot stocks. You are looking for at least a few weeks, maybe even months. Especially this one. This is a very good story.
Yeah, and I'd say the same with AKE. I mean, like Muggins, I put the stop loss at where is it? I put the stop loss at 95, I think, or 93 or 95. But at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with this, and there's a great report on Livewire about AKE that it could actually, if things go in its favor, it could have a huge move this year. So you put these stop losses as a guide, but if I hadn't sold, I'd be quite happy. It's back over 10, and it looks like maybe it's going to go sideways now for a while, Wolf, before maybe it has that next move up. But again, it's an exciting story, and obviously in the lithium space, and I think I'd be holding it, to be honest. Now I've lost my spot, Wolf.
That's okay.
Here we go. Right, down we go again. So and again we've got PTB, which is another good story. Which really, all the dramas we've had in this Ukraine war, look how well that's held trend. It's come back down to the trend line, and I think that's an interesting buy as well, as a good little story. KTG, likewise, looking pretty good. So, Rick, obviously we spoke about it earlier. Technology One, again, same sort of price action. Wolfius we had with Seek, same sort of price action with SDF. I like that type of move. It's historically, you can see when you get that type of move, there you've got it again. It can go on with it. So it's interesting seeing some of these sort of I don't want to say Goliaths on our market, but some of these bigger stocks that have just been sold off, the market's happy now to get back into them.
Yeah, look, I find it very fascinating because we've seen the American tech stocks getting sold off heavily, like 60, 70, 80%, and they're still struggling. I know that we had a little bit of a bounce on the last 3 days or last week, but some of these Australian stocks are actually bouncing very hard. They're above trend lines. You're looking at buying them back in. But I think the difference between our stocks and their stocks, a lot of our market darling tech stocks are actually profitable, right? So that's probably what is comforting when you're buying the Australian tech stocks, that they're actually still making profit. So people don't mind paying a little bit up for it, as long as it's coming up with the numbers that you can go, well, it's going to pay me a dividend, it's going to give me some sort of profits every year. I'm happy to buy. So the only probably stuff that's struggling here in Australia still are the ones that are very similar to the American stocks. The strong growth stories, but they're still losing cash, and they might be still losing cash for the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay, Wolf, just to summarize, there's plenty of stories, and have a look at Einstein's, and there's different ones that you can trend, but obviously if you've done the course, you know what you're doing. If you haven't done the Cincinnati course, have well worth having a look. We picked out a number of stories here, Macquarie, TUA, that look interesting. We're going to put OFX on as an official trend. I just think we have to, with that price action last week. We just have to buy that.
Well, you can put a case on all of these days we talked about. You can probably still buy it today. Right?
Yeah, no, definitely, and also obviously Macquarie as well. But we'll put OFX out on our list, Wolf. And again, absolutely brilliant job last week, Wolf. And mate, back to the
Good to have you back.
Back to the real stuff now, Wolf. Fundamentals.
Back to the boring stuff.
Do you actually?
Wild ride of looking at the charts.
Do you actually? Is that true? Do you actually think that now? Do you find fundamentals boring?
Nah, fundamentals always going to be my number one love. But I look at both things these days, right? I used to just look at really the fundamentals. I look at both things. So it just, again, I've talked about it many times over the last few years. It gives you that extra box you can tick. You're buying something that's actually going up because the technical saying there's momentum. There's there's investors that want to be part of the story. So it just gives you that extra bit of incentive to go and get some.
All right. On that note, Wolfie, you've confessed something pretty.
Yeah, I have.
Uh,
I think people would go when they join me on Friday, going, "My God, he loves his technicals." I was passionate, Dave. I was passionate.
well, you're very good at stop losses, so you've got no problem there.
Uh,
Wolf, just before you go, come on.
yes.
I think you're on a roll at the moment, Wolfie. Give me a feeling on the situation in Ukraine. We're going to get. You are from that part of the world. You understand a little bit more about it than most of us. Do you think we're going to have some sort of peace agreement?
Ooh, so it's a difficult question to answer. Look, I'm just what I'm reading at the moment is Turkey saying we're getting closer to some sort of peace deal, right? But I know how Putin and Russia operates. In other words, with lies. So he'll just say anything just to help himself, really. So I think he's still going for the end game, which is taking over Ukraine. Unless something drastic happens, he'll grind it out until he gets what he wants. So yeah, look, I just think that for the moment, I think we just don't know. But I'm still sticking to that fact that he wants Ukraine part of back in the old USSR. Crazy.
All right, Wolf, just before we go, I've got something I have to confess on WiseTech.
Yeah, go on.
It's got a good chart, but you know what? I just couldn't put it on because you brainwashed me about this story.
Yeah, but didn't I just say to you before that obviously the investors here in Australia, as long as it's profitable, Dave, as long as it's growing, I think that the Australians don't mind a bit of, paying a little bit, mind 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 times for a story. That's the thing. That's what it looks like. And the other thing is we don't have much.
Well, if you were gonna trade this, tight stop,
Yeah.
because we are not happy with the fundamentals at all, but I'll confess, I didn't put it out. You brainwashed me against this company, Wolf.
Dave, what I'm going to do for everyone, by the end of the week, I am going to come up with some really oversold tech stocks that are not profitable, right? But they've been sold off down, 50%, 60%, 70% here in Australia. So we're going to look at some of those. Whisper is a great point in case. Just put that on so you can have a look at the charts. But we are trying to go obviously find some of these stories and start looking at it because it's starting maybe to look a little bit more interesting. But obviously technically probably too early, but at least we need to start talking about these stories to get ourselves comfortable and buying them at the right time.
Well, Wolf, we need them on our watch list, right?
Absolutely.
So I mean,
Friday.
we've been saying to everybody for ages, this sell-off is an opportunity. Now, there's been a massive sell-off on tech stocks, so there's an opportunity there. So we need them on our watch list, Wolf.
Yep.
So we're watching them all the time, and if we can see,
we're going to have a watch list and a half, Dave, on Friday.
Well, I'm excited about Friday already. On that note, Wolfie, thank you very, very much, and brilliant job last week. Thanks, Wolfie.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. And thanks for everyone for listening to me for 1 week on my own.
I don't think anyone did, but I'll talk about that later.
Stop. Give me some lies. I want to hear some lies. Everyone would love me. That's it.
I got thousands of emails from everyone just like.
Oh, there you go. Now you're talking my language.
Yeah, I just changed the name. I take off Wolfie and I put Hound. It makes me feel better.
Sometimes, sometimes the people with big heads, they just need to hear what they want to hear.
Okay, see you, Wolf. Bye.